Loneliness isn't just being alone, it's the quiet moments you can't explain, the thoughts you don't share, the emptiness you feel, even when the room is full. In this video, we're going to explore 100 different levels of loneliness, from the ones you felt before to the ones you didn't even know had a name. Level 1. What loneliness really is. Loneliness isn't the same as being alone. Aloneness is a situation. Loneliness is a feeling. You can live in a crowded city, sit in a buzzing group chat, even share a relationship, and still feel lonely. Psychologically, loneliness is the gap between desired and experienced connection. When what you need doesn't match what you get, loneliness appears. It exists on a spectrum, from a faint tug in the background to a heavy grey filter that colors every day. Important, loneliness is a signal, not a verdict. Like hunger reminds you to eat, loneliness reminds you to connect. Because it hurts, it works like an alarm, pushing you toward closeness. But when it lingers, the alarm misfires. You withdraw, ruminate, and grow cautious. Then a loop forms. You feel lonely, read neutral cues as cold, avoid contact, and confirm the loneliness. This series will guide you gently through the landscape of this feeling. What happens in the body, why some life phases are riskier, how digital spaces help or harm, and how to mend loneliness without overwhelming yourself. You don't need perfect social skills, a big click, or a loud life. Connection begins quietly with 3 pillars. Visibility. I let myself be seen, resonance, someone responds, and reliability. We show up again. That's the core we'll build on. Level 2. The biology of belonging. Loneliness is measurable. Your brain runs social homeostasis, like hunger or temperature regulation. When closeness is scarce, stress markers rise, cortisol elevates, sleep gets shallow, blood pressure ticks up. In the anterior cingulate cortex, networks for social pain overlap with those for physical pain. Rejection literally burns. Meanwhile, the reward system, dopamine, becomes more sensitive to belonging and more anxious about rejection. You crave contact and flinch from it at the same time. Chronic loneliness also shifts attention and interpretation toward threat. A neutral face looks distant. A short reply feels cold. A lively group photo proves you don't belong. Your body tries to protect you sometimes from the wrong thing. The good news, biology is malleable. Small, safe encounters, the barista chat, a weekly class, a standing walk with the same person deliver social calories. Regularity beats intensity. Foundations help, sleep, daylight, movement, and steady meals calm the stress system so interaction reads as possible instead of dangerous. Then loneliness becomes not a verdict on your worth, but a temporary energy state you can influence. Level 3. The 3 faces of loneliness. Psychologists often distinguish intimate, relational, and collective loneliness. Intimate loneliness is the absence of one very close confidant, someone who knows your inner weather and expects no performance. Without it, big moments feel unshared. Relational loneliness is the lack of a near circle and casual, recurring activity. Who invites you on a whim? Who shares jokes, small wins, minor dramas? Without this net, single ties carry too much weight and snap. Collective loneliness is missing a bigger we. Neighborhood, club, faith, fandom, identity group, professional guild. It answers, where does someone like me belong? Many suffer quietly from collective loneliness. Contacts exist, but not pride and identity in a group. Each layer ripples the others. A strong club softens private droughts. A deep pair bond can buffer a thin friend phase. When loneliness stirs, ask, which cup is empty? That answer guides the next step. For intimate closeness, quality, vulnerability, consistency. For relational closeness, rhythm, standing plans, humble rituals. For collective closeness, place and role. A spot where your contribution matters. Loneliness rarely vanishes in one magical meeting. It melts as all 3 cups fill, slow. Level 4. Roots in attachment and biography. Our capacity for closeness forms early. Attachment theory sketches an inner map. Am I welcome? Do others respond when I call? Secure attachment teaches closeness is available. I am effective. Avoidant protects through distance. I don't need anyone. Anxious clings for fear of loss. Disorganized wavers when closeness meant both safety and danger. These are adaptations. They once helped. Later, they can extend loneliness unintentionally. Avoidance blocks resonance. Clinging floods relationships. Unpredictability exhausts both sides. The good news, attachment is learnable. Corrective experiences, reliable people who respond consistently, redraw the map. Practically, 1. Tiny tests, mini disclosures, not grand confessions. 2. Boundaries, practice closeness without self-loss. 3. Co-regulation, calm body states in company. Walking, cooking, breathing, shared quiet. 4. Story work. Tell your history with yourself as agent, not only as acted upon. Loneliness lessens as belonging becomes predictable. Predictability grows when you show up repeatedly, similar enough that others can find you, free enough that you want to stay. Level 5. Digital loneliness. The always-on paradox. We're always connected and often always lonely. Why? Digital spaces maximize quantity of contacts but not quality. They boost signal strength, loudness, drama, polish, while relationships need signal fidelity, honesty, recurrence, slowness. Result, you see many people, but few truly see you. Parasocial bonds with creators, teams, characters can warm, but they don't reciprocate. The fix isn't quitting the internet, but intentionality. 1. Synchronous islands. Less scrolling, more live. A weekly voice call, a fixed game night, a book club on video. 2. Small, closed rooms over endless feeds, groups with rituals. 3. Micro co-creation, build something together online, co-writing sessions, challenges, remote volunteering. 4. Bridges offline, DM, coffee, server, local meetup. Don't measure your digital day by minutes spent, but by moments of reciprocity. Loneliness shrinks when audience turns into partners, when someone doesn't just watch, but does something with you. Level 6. A gentle social fitness plan. Think of connection like aerobic fitness. Small, repeatable workouts beat rare marathons. Design a social warm-up you can do most days in under 10 minutes. Start micro, send one kind text, reply to one message with more than an emoji, exchange a few words with a barista or neighbor. That's your daily reps of visibility. Next, add a weekly rhythm anchor. A class, a club, a run in the same park on the same day. Humans bond to patterns. Keep the bar low. Show up, not show off. Build an exposure ladder for nerves. Level 1. Sit in a cafe and make eye contact. Level 2. Ask for a recommendation. Level 3. Attend a meetup and aim for one 5-minute chat. Level 4. Invite someone for a short walk. After each step, jot 2 lines. What went better than expected, and one thing to try next time. Track inputs, not outcomes. Minutes present, messages sent, invites made. Outcomes, new friends. Deeper trust. Arrive like weather after climate changes. For energy management, pair social moments with body regulation. Arrive 5 minutes early, breathe out longer than in. Sip something warm, unclench the jaw. Pre-commit to exit routes. I can stay 30 minutes, so your nervous system trusts you. Protect the day after bigger efforts with quiet sunlight, movement, and no self-critique. When a plan slips, restart with the smallest unit. One sincere hello. Social fitness isn't charisma, it's consistency under kindness. You are not behind your training. Level 7. Cognitive traps that keep you lonely. Loneliness sharpens certain thinking habits that quietly lock the door from the inside. Mind reading, assuming others find you boring or burdensome without evidence. Catastrophizing, turning a slow reply into a global rejection. Personalization, making neutral events about your worth. They didn't invite me, becomes I am uninvitable. Permanence bias, believing today's isolation predicts forever. Gently counter each trap with testable alternatives. Write the automatic thought, then a kinder, equally plausible story. They're busy. One data point isn't a trend. If I want clarity, I can ask. Use behavioral experiments. If you think initiating annoys people, send 3 low-stakes invites this month. Track responses, notice how your brain filters it, highlights proof you don't belong, and hides evidence you do. Build an evidence list. Moments someone smiled, followed up, thanked you, remembered a detail. Reread it on lonely days. It's not bragging, it's calibration. Practice specific requests instead of vague hopes. Coffee Tuesday, beats, we should hang out sometime. When shame says, don't risk it, borrow future you's voice. We're training for a life with friends. Use time boxing for rumination. 10 minutes of worry on paper, then move, and upgrade your self-talk from verdicts to process verbs. I am learning to connect. I'm practicing invitations. The goal isn't to never feel lonely, it's to keep thoughts from turning weather into climate. Level 8, designing for connection. Places, rituals, roles. Belonging grows where friction is low and repetition is easy. Choose 1 or 2 third places, a cafe, library table, climbing gym, makerspace, close enough that you'll go on autopilot. Pick recurring times. People become familiar because you are predictably there. Add a small ritual that invites interaction. Bring a deck of conversation cards, a free-to-play chess sign, a dog with a friendly "you can pet me" bandana, a small bowl of spare bike tools. Give yourself a role: timekeeper for a study group, snack bringer, post-run stretch lead, note-taker in a meetup. Roles convert visitor energy into member energy. You matter because something would be missing without you. Host tiny, a 40-minute tea window, a bring one poem night, a mini walk after work. Cap attendance at 2 or 3. Intimacy scales inversely with group size. For digital spaces, prune feeds that numb and starve feeds that loop back into reality. Local groups, hobby servers that meet offline, volunteer channels. Use default invitations. I'll be at the park Saturdays 10-11, join anytime. Defaults reduce negotiation fatigue. Finally, install connection queues at home, a visible stack of postcards to send, a whiteboard with 3 names for monthly check-ins, shoes by the door to make leaving easy. You're not faking sociability, you're engineering frictionless chances for resonance. Level 9. Night loneliness and the sleep loop. Loneliness and insomnia reinforce each other. At night, cognitive guards soften and threat-biased attention turns up. The mind replays social misses, invents worst-case futures, scrolls for comfort and finds comparison. Break the loop with a staging routine that starts hours earlier. Daylight exposure, caffeine cutoff, a wind-down walk. Devices parked outside the bedroom. Create a companionship buffer before sleep. A gentle call, co-reading on voice chat, a shared goodnight text ritual, or a calm podcast audiobook that signals safety without engagement. In bed, swap problem-solving for sensory anchors. A body scan, counting exhales to 6, labeling sensations warm, heavy, supported. When rumination spikes, sit up, low light, read paper pages, 10-15 minutes, then return. You're teaching the brain bed rest, not courtroom. If the house feels too quiet, use consistent brown noise or a soft fan. Predictability soothes the vigilance system. Next day, schedule micro-connection, early morning sunlight, hello to blunt the evening dip. Avoid doom scrolling, choose parasocial with purpose, cozy, kind voices over high arousal feeds. Remember, a lonely night is not evidence of a lonely life. Treat it like jet lag. Adjust cues, protect rituals, keep going. Sleep is a social organ too. It rests best when it trusts tomorrow's small meetings will come. Level 10. Repairing and deepening bonds. Loneliness often hides unmade repairs and undeclared wishes. Start with small repairs. Name the micro-rupture. I went quiet last week. Take ownership. I should have said I was overwhelmed. State a plan. Next time I'll text a heads up. Keep it short. Repairs work by predictability, not poetry. Learn to make bids for connection. Tiny attempts to share attention. Look at this. Hear this song. Walk with me. Healthy bonds are built when people turn toward bids. They notice, respond, and sometimes deepen the moment. Practice responsive listening. Reflect, so that meeting drained you. Validate, that makes sense. Then ask a gentle next. Want advice or just company? Offer specific appreciations tied to behaviors. You remembered my interview date. That steadied me. Schedule follow-ups. Trust compounds when people circle back. Share in-progress selves, not only polished outcomes. Send the draft, the messy sketch, the half-formed idea. Mutuality grows where risk is safe-sized. When distance formed, propose structured reconnection. 3 short coffees over a month, a shared goal, train 5K, read 1 book, or a finite project, host a tiny potluck. If a bond needs boundaries, say them clearly and kindly. Clarity prevents slow estrangement. Finally, let relationships breathe. Not every thread must be daily. Depth is frequency, Kai's quality of repair. Keep showing up, keep repairing, keep inviting. Belonging is less a door you find than a garden you tend. Level 11. The loneliness of success. Achievement can paradoxically amplify loneliness. When you reach a milestone, a promotion, a degree, publishing a work, you expect celebration. But if those around you can't relate or feel envy, connection thin, success changes your reference group. Old peers might feel distant, new peers may still see you as unproven. Loneliness here isn't about lacking people, it's about lacking shared language and stakes. To counter this, create a circle of relevance. Find at least 2 people who understand the terrain you're now in, even if they live far away. Join mastermind groups, niche forums, or professional meetups. Pair high achievement spaces with low bar joy spaces where you can drop titles and simply be board game nights, hobby classes, community volunteering. Learn to share success without performance. I'm proud and a little scared. Instead of listing outcomes, invite others into your journey early, not only when polished. Co-own the process. Guard against imposter syndrome, isolation. The feeling that you can't connect because you're not truly what your role says. Naming this to trusted peers often dissolves its grip. And resist the lone hero script. Bring collaborators into the spotlight. Share credit and build gratitude rituals that keep relationships warm. Success can be a bridge or a wall. Build the bridge on purpose. Level 12. When family feels far even when close. Geographic proximity doesn't guarantee emotional closeness. Some feel most lonely at a crowded holiday table because belonging without being seen still leaves you starved. This form of loneliness comes from misattunement. Your values, identity, or needs diverge from the family's narrative. First, validate the feeling. It's not betrayal to notice distance. Identify pockets of safety. One cousin who gets your humor, an aunt who listens without fixing. Invest more in these micro-bonds than in trying to repair every gap at once. Practice strategic sharing. You don't owe your whole inner world to people who misuse it. Choose 2 or 3 topics that feel safe to discuss and reserve the deeper parts for chosen family or friends. When visits drain you, plan post-visit rituals. Call a friend, take a walk, journal the good moments. You can also reshape family time. Suggest smaller gatherings, shared activities, cooking together, walks, that shift the dynamic from interrogation to collaboration. And when grief arises for the closeness you wish you had, allow it. Grief honors the value of what's missing. Then remember, family can be chosen. Building parallel networks of care is not replacement, but supplementation. You are allowed both ties of blood and ties of soul. Level 13. Digital closeness versus digital drift. Online spaces can both soothe and sharpen loneliness. Messaging friends, voice calls, gaming together can create genuine bonds, but digital drift happens when interactions stay shallow. Likes, short reacts, memes without context. You start feeling always connected but rarely fulfilled. To reverse drift, set digital depth goals. 1 meaningful exchange per day where both share something real. A challenge, a joy, a thought. Use voice notes or video messages. Richer channels increase emotional presence. Schedule sync moments. Watch a movie together on a call. Co-work silently with mics open. Play a collaborative game. Audit your feed. Does scrolling make you feel warmer or more hollow? Keep platforms where reciprocal contact happens. Mute or leave the rest. If parasocial connections, streamers, influencers are filling a social gap, add 2-way connections to balance them. Remember, asynchronous isn't bad. It's the absence of emotional exchange that starves us. Curate your digital spaces for continuity. Keep a shared doc of in-jokes, a running playlist, a photo album. Digital bonds need maintenance signals just like offline ones. Check-ins, callbacks to past conversations, small gifts, or surprises. Done well, online friendships can be as enduring as face-to-face, but only if you treat them like real rooms, not endless corridors. Level 17. The loneliness of carrying a secret. There's a unique kind of loneliness that comes from holding something you feel you cannot share. It might be a truth about your past, a fear about your future, or even a private dream you think others would mock. This isn't just emotional, it's physical. You can feel the weight of the unsaid pressing into your chest during conversations, the way your words skirt around the edges of the real thing you wish you could say. It's exhausting. Playing the role of the open book when one chapter is locked. Secrets isolate because they split you in two, the presented self and the hidden self. To ease this, find one safe container. This could be a therapist, a trusted friend, or even a journal locked away from prying eyes. Expressing the secret, even partially, relieves the internal pressure. Sometimes the secrecy is self-protective, and that's valid, but secrecy becomes corrosive when it's rooted in shame. Ask yourself, is this something I am keeping private for my safety, or am I hiding because I fear rejection? Those are different. The loneliness of a secret can't always be erased, but it can be softened by knowing at least one place, human or written, where the truth is fully allowed. Level 18. The loneliness of leadership. Being at the top, whether it's a CEO, a team leader, a parent guiding a family, carries an invisible solitude. People often see your position, but not your person. They come to you for answers, guidance, and stability, which means you rarely get the luxury of collapsing in front of them. You might suppress doubts because you fear they'll erode trust. This creates a gap. You are surrounded by people, but few can meet you as an equal in the context of your role. The cure isn't to abandon leadership, it's to build horizontal spaces where you're just another person, not the leader. This could be a peer group, a hobby club, or a friendship circle far from your professional sphere. Learn to share struggles selectively with those who understand the pressures without exploiting the vulnerability. Remind yourself that asking for help isn't a breach of your image, it's a model of healthy leadership. True authority comes not from being untouchable, but from knowing when to drop the armor. The loneliness at the top is real, but it doesn't have to be constant if you make space for the human underneath the title. Level 19. The loneliness of unmet intellectual connection. It's possible to have emotional closeness with people yet still feel starved in another way. Intellectually, maybe you crave deep discussions about philosophy, science, or art, but the conversations around you rarely venture past the surface. This isn't about arrogance, it's about compatibility of curiosity. Without it, you feel like you're speaking a different language. To ease this, actively seek intellectual communities, book clubs, online forums, lectures, even casual meetups for niche interests. Don't expect every relationship to fill every need. Your partner or friends might not be your idea people, and that's okay if you find that stimulation elsewhere. Sometimes loneliness here is a call to create the space you wish existed. Start a discussion group, host themed dinners, or launch a small online project around your interest. Intellectual loneliness can turn into intellectual leadership when you decide to gather the curious instead of waiting to be found by them. Level 20. The loneliness of self-discovery. Self-discovery is often romanticized as this glowing journey of becoming, but in truth it's oft disorienting and isolating. The moment you realize you've been living by scripts you didn't write, cultural expectations, family rules, societal timelines, you might feel as though the world you knew has dissolved. This space between who I was and who I'm becoming is a kind of no man's land, where few can walk with you. The people around you might not understand why you're questioning things they take for granted. To survive this, treat self-discovery like moving to a new country. Immerse yourself in the language and customs of your evolving self. Read, journal, meet others on similar paths, even if it's through podcasts or online groups. Don't demand immediate clarity. Part of self-discovery is sitting in the fog until patterns emerge. This loneliness isn't a punishment, it's a rite of passage. The more authentically you shape your life, the more aligned companions you'll attract. Until then, walk your own road with the faith that isolation here is temporary, and necessary for a truer belonging ahead. Level 21. The loneliness of being misunderstood. Few pains cut as sharply as the feeling that someone has heard your words but still hasn't grasped what you meant. Misunderstanding isn't just a failure of language, it's a fracture in connection. You share something deeply personal, only to watch it be twisted, minimized, or dismissed. Over time, this can make you retreat, choosing silence over the exhausting work of explaining yourself. The loneliness here grows, not from lack of company, but from lack of recognition. To ease it, focus on finding active listeners, the ones who ask clarifying questions instead of rushing to respond. It's equally important to refine your own communication. Sometimes the bridge to being understood is built plank by plank, with patience and care. And remember, not everyone has the capacity or context to understand you fully, but that doesn't mean your experience is invalid. This loneliness can be a teacher in discernment. Not all ears deserve your deepest truths. Level 22. The loneliness of cultural displacement. Leaving the culture you were raised in, whether by choice, circumstance, or exile, creates a loneliness that is both subtle and relentless. You lose the small shared references, the way people greet each other, the humor, the festivals, the unspoken rules. Even if you learn the new language fluently, there's a grammar of belonging that takes far longer to master. This kind of loneliness can make you feel invisible in a crowd, like you're living behind a pane of glass. To survive it, create a hybrid space. Hold on to traditions that nourish you, while also opening yourself to new customs that resonate. Connect with others who share your cultural background, but also with those who are curious and respectful about it. Over time, this in-between identity can become a bridge rather than a fracture. The loneliness may never disappear entirely, but it can transform into a quiet pride in having two worlds within you. Level 23. The loneliness of outgrowing relationships. We often think of loneliness as something that comes from absence, but it can also come from presence. From sitting next to someone you once felt deeply connected to and realizing you've grown in opposite directions, outgrowing a relationship is like moving to a higher floor of a building while they remain below. You can still wave, but the view is different. This can bring guilt, sadness, even resistance. You remember the good times, and part of you wants to shrink yourself to fit back into them. But staying too long in misaligned relationships drains more than it comforts. The path through this loneliness isn't to replace the person immediately, but to honor the chapter you shared and give yourself permission to seek alignment elsewhere. Growth sometimes means walking alone for a while, trusting that new connections will form at the level you now inhabit. Level 24. The loneliness of chronic pain or illness. Pain is isolating because it lives in a language only you fully understand. You can describe it, prior it, measure it, but others can only ever approximate your experience. Chronic conditions add another layer: the exhaustion of explaining, the awkwardness of canceling plans, the fear of being seen as too much. This loneliness is often compounded by invisibility. People may not see your suffering and thus underestimate it. To cope, seek communities, online or in person, where lived experience is shared. Sometimes just hearing "me too" can puncture the isolation. Build a small circle of people who can adapt with you, who value your company even when you're not at your most social. And remember, your worth is not measured by how well you hide your pain. The right people will meet you where you are, not where you pretend to be. Level 25. The loneliness of leadership. Leading others is often romanticized as a position of power, but what is less spoken about is the deep isolation it can bring. When you are the one making decisions that affect many lives, you are no longer just a friend or colleague, you are the leader. People may admire you, but they also begin to censor themselves around you, filtering their words or withholding criticism. You may find that the higher you rise, the fewer people you can truly confide in without your vulnerability being misinterpreted. This loneliness is compounded by the weight of responsibility. Every choice feels like a solitary burden. The way through is to cultivate a small circle of trusted peers, people who understand the stakes but can still see you as a person, not just a position. It's also vital to maintain humility, to remind yourself that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. Level 26. The loneliness of being ahead of your time. History is filled with thinkers, artists, and innovators whose ideas were met with ridicule or dismissal in their own era, only to be celebrated decades or centuries later. To be ahead of your time is to live in a constant tension between your vision and the world's readiness. Conversations can feel stunted because you're speaking from a place others haven't reached yet. This loneliness can lead to self-doubt, but it can also become a forge for resilience. The solution is to find even a small handful of people who resonate with your ideas, those who get it without requiring years of explanation. Document your work, share it in spaces where it might take root, and remember that timing is not always within your control. Sometimes the loneliness of being ahead is simply the waiting room for a future where your perspective becomes the foundation for others. Being emotionally self-sufficient is often praised as a sign of strength, but it comes with a hidden cost. People may assume you never need support. If you rarely show vulnerability, friends and family might stop checking in thinking you're fine without them. Over time, you might even convince yourself you don't need anyone at all until a moment of deep struggle exposes the cracks in your armor. This loneliness is subtle, because on the surface your life may look well balanced. The truth is that human beings are wired for connection, no matter how capable they are alone. To combat this, you must practice the discomfort of asking, not because you're incapable, but because relationships deepen when needs are shared. Allow others the gift of showing up for you. The strongest structures are not those that stand isolated, but those that interlock. Level 28. The loneliness of parenting. Raising children is a profound journey of love and sacrifice, but it can also be deeply isolating, especially in the early years. Your world narrows to feeding schedules, school runs, and an endless list of responsibilities that others outside your situation may not fully understand. Social circles can shift. Friends without children might drift away, while those with children may be too consumed with their own lives to connect meaningfully. The loneliness here often hides behind busyness, but it can be heavy nonetheless. The remedy lies in seeking community, parent groups, shared activities, spaces where your experience is mirrored. It also means carving out small moments for yourself, even if only a few minutes a day, to remember the person you are beyond parent. This loneliness, while intense, is often temporary, but the connections you form during it can last a lifetime. Level 29. The loneliness of misunderstood ambition. Ambition can be a powerful force. It drives innovation, pushes boundaries, and builds futures. But it can also set you apart in ways that feel isolating. When your dreams are larger than the environment you grew up in, you may find that those around you don't understand your hunger for more. They might interpret it as arrogance, restlessness, or ingratitude. Conversations can become awkward as you temper your excitement to avoid seeming too much. Over time, this quiet suppression of your inner fire can lead to a deep sense of disconnection. The antidote is not to shrink, but to find those who dream as you do. Surround yourself with people who don't just tolerate your ambition, but celebrate it, who speak the language of possibility fluently. Remember, ambition is not the opposite of gratitude. It is the companion of vision. And while the path you've chosen might be lonelier than most, it's often a road that leads to the most meaningful destination. Level 30. The loneliness of living in two worlds. Some people live between worlds, culturally, emotionally, or even geographically. Perhaps you were born in one place but raised in another, or you move frequently between vastly different communities. While this can give you a rich and nuanced perspective, it can also leave you feeling like you don't fully belong anywhere. In one space, parts of you are hidden or misunderstood. In another, different aspects are overlooked. The loneliness here is not about lacking people, it's about lacking a place where your whole self is seen. The solution is often self-created, curate environments, even small ones, where you can integrate all your identities without compromise. Seek friendships that are flexible, where curiosity replaces judgment. Over time, you may find that belonging doesn't always come from fitting in, it comes from building bridges and making space for complexity. Level 31. The loneliness of outgrowing relationships. Personal growth is rarely uniform, and sometimes it means moving beyond relationships that once felt essential. This can be one of the most bittersweet forms of loneliness. You still care for the people you've known for years, but your values, interests, or priorities no longer align. Conversations feel forced. The spark of mutual understanding has dimmed, and you find yourself holding back parts of who you've become. Letting go can feel like betrayal, but clinging to relationships that no longer nourish you can be equally damaging. The truth is, growth often requires pruning, creating space for new connections that align with your current self. This loneliness is transitional, but it teaches you an important truth. Not everyone is meant to walk your entire journey with you. Level 32. The loneliness of unshared joy. Joy is one of the most beautiful emotions we can experience, yet it often feels incomplete when we have no one to share it with. Emotional maturity is a gift, but like many gifts, it can come with unexpected weight. When you process emotions deeply, communicate openly, and handle conflict with patience, you might find yourself standing apart from those around you. In a world where avoidance, defensiveness, and impulsive reactions are common, your steadiness can feel alien to others. Conversations that matter to you may seem overwhelming to them, and your attempts at honest dialogue might be dismissed as too serious. Over time, this mismatch can breed a quiet kind of loneliness, the sense that no one wants to meet you at the level where you naturally exist. The challenge is not to dim your maturity, but to be selective about where you invest it. Seek out people who value depth over convenience, who are willing to engage in uncomfortable truths for the sake of growth. Until then, remember that solitude in an immature world isn't a flaw. It's a sign that you've outgrown certain dynamics, and that your people are still ahead waiting for you to find them. Level 34. The loneliness of being the listener. Some people naturally become the listener in every relationship. You are the one friends come to with their struggles, the one who remembers birthdays, offers advice, and holds space when others fall apart. This role is deeply rewarding, but it can also be profoundly isolating. You hear everyone else's stories, but rarely get the chance to tell your own. You comfort others, but no one checks in on you. This imbalance can make you feel invisible, valued for your utility, but not for your humanity. The way through is learning to set boundaries and invite reciprocity. Practice saying, "I need to talk about me today," without guilt. Build connections with people who ask you questions, who notice your silences, who understand that listening is a two-way street. Your worth is not tied to how useful you are to others, it's tied to the truth of who you are, and you deserve to be heard as much as anyone else. Level 35. The loneliness of unshared grief. Grief can be one of the most isolating human experiences, especially when those around you have not felt the same loss. You may find that others avoid the topic, change the subject, or offer platitudes that feel empty. Without a shared point of reference, your grief exists in a private world, real to you, but invisible to others. This can make you feel as though you're carrying something unbearably heavy, in complete solitude. Yet grief, while personal, is also universal. Someone somewhere understands. The path forward is often found in grief-specific communities, support groups, or even quiet conversations with those who have faced similar pain. Speaking your loss aloud doesn't erase it, but it can bridge the chasm between your world and theirs. And sometimes knowing you're not the only one carrying the weight is enough to help you keep moving. Level 36. The loneliness of the visionary. Visionaries often see possibilities that others can't or won't see. Whether it's a creative idea, a social movement, or a better way of living, your vision sets you apart. At first, the resistance you face may seem like indifference, but over time it can feel like rejection. People may doubt you, dismiss your ideas, or subtly discourage you from pursuing them. This can create a space where you feel alone, not just physically, but ideologically. The key is to protect your vision until you find allies who can help it grow. Seek out mentors, collaborators, and communities that thrive on innovation. In the meantime, remember that every visionary in history, from inventors to artists to leaders, has walked through a period of isolation. The loneliness is not proof you're wrong, it's proof you're ahead of your time. Level 37. The loneliness of outgrowing relationships. There comes a time when you realize you've outgrown certain friendships, relationships, or even entire social circles. This isn't about superiority. It's about growth. You might have once shared common goals, lifestyles, and perspectives, but now your paths have diverged. Conversations that once felt rich now feel shallow. Activities that once bonded you now feel empty. The loneliness here is layered. You miss who they were, you miss who you were with them, and you grieve the connection that can no longer exist. What makes it harder is that others may not understand your shift. They may accuse you of changing too much or becoming distant. But change is inevitable, and not all relationships are meant to last forever. Level 38, the loneliness of the night thinker. For some, the quiet hours of the night are the only time they feel truly alive. When the world sleeps, you think, you reflect on choices, replay conversations, imagine futures, and revisit memories you can't seem to release. There's a deep beauty in these moments, but also a crushing solitude. Level 39, the loneliness of inner transformation. Level 40, the loneliness of being the strong one. If you've always been the strong one, the problem solver, the emotional anchor, the dependable presence, people may never see your own struggles. They assume you're fine because you always seem fine. They come to you for help, but rarely think to offer it in return. Over time, you begin to wonder if anyone would notice if you fell apart. This role is exhausting because it denies you the space to be vulnerable. The truth is, strength doesn't mean never needing support. It means carrying heavy things while still knowing when to set them down. To ease this loneliness, you must let people see the cracks. Tell someone you trust when you're not okay. Ask for help without apology. The right people won't think less of you. They'll step forward to hold you up. Being strong should not mean being alone. Level 41, the loneliness of not feeling understood. Few experiences are more isolating than feeling like no one truly understands you. You can be surrounded by people, yet feel invisible because your thoughts, feelings, or values don't seem to align with theirs. You try to explain, but your words never seem to capture the full picture. You start to edit yourself, avoiding certain topics or hiding parts of your personality. Over time, this creates a silent wall between you and everyone else. This loneliness is not about the absence of company, but about the absence of connection. The challenge here is that being understood requires vulnerability, and vulnerability carries risk of rejection, mockery, or dismissal. But without it, you remain unseen. The way forward is to seek out those rare individuals who listen with curiosity instead of judgment, and to slowly open yourself to them. Even one person who understands you can dissolve the sharpest edges of this loneliness. Level 42, the loneliness of a big life change. Major life changes, moving to a new city, changing careers, ending a long-term relationship can bring a wave of loneliness even if the change is positive. You've left behind routines, familiar places, and the comfort of knowing how each day will feel. Suddenly, you're navigating uncharted territory without the emotional map you once relied on. Friends might cheer you on from afar, but they can't fully experience the quiet moments of uncertainty you face. This type of loneliness is transitional. It's the gap between the life you knew and the one you're building. The best way to bridge it is to intentionally create new points of connection. Join communities, learn the local rhythms, and give yourself permission to be a beginner again. Every unfamiliar street and awkward conversation is a step toward replacing loneliness with belonging. Level 43. The loneliness of carrying a secret. Secrets have weight. The longer you carry them, the heavier they feel. It could be something you're ashamed of, something that could hurt others, or simply something deeply personal that you can't bring yourself to share. You carry it in silence, nodding and smiling while internally guarding your truth. This secrecy builds walls between you and those closest to you, because no matter how much they care, they can never truly know you without knowing what you hide. Not all secrets must be told, but many become lighter when shared with someone safe. That person doesn't have to solve anything. They just need to hear you without turning away. The loneliness of secrecy is the loneliness of guarding your own heart from connection. To escape it, you must decide whether the risk of sharing is worth the relief of being fully seen. Level 44. The loneliness of high standards. When you have high standards for yourself, your work, or the people around you, it can be a lonely place to live. You might watch others settle for less while you hold out for something better. Whether it's in friendships, love, or career, your unwillingness to compromise can make you feel out of step with the rest of the world. Others might view you as overly picky or hard to please, but you know your standards come from knowing your worth. Level 45. The loneliness of being the strong one. When you are the strong one in your circle, the person who listens, supports, and holds everyone else together, people rarely stop to ask how you are. They're so accustomed to leaning on you that they forget you might need a shoulder too. Over time, you start hiding your struggles because you don't want to burden others, or you fear breaking the image they have of you. This creates a quiet, persistent loneliness, being surrounded by people who love you, yet not feeling free to show your cracks. The truth is, strength is not the absence of need, it's the willingness to admit you have limits. Letting someone see your vulnerability can deepen your relationships and remind you that being strong also means letting yourself rest in someone else's care. Even the strongest pillars need support from time to time. Level 46. The loneliness of success. Achieving something significant, a promotion, creative recognition, financial stability should feel rewarding. But sometimes success isolates you. Friends and peers may treat you differently, assuming you no longer share the same struggles. Some may envy you, and others might distance themselves. You might even feel guilty about your achievements, especially if those around you are still chasing theirs. This form of loneliness is the gap between your inner world and how others perceive it. Success can be exciting, but it doesn't erase the need for understanding, empathy, and shared struggles. The best remedy is to seek out people who are walking similar paths, those who can celebrate your wins without diminishing their own, and who understand that success comes with its own challenges. Connection isn't about equal achievements, it's about shared humanity. Level 47. The loneliness of different dreams. It's hard when the people you love don't share your vision for the future. Your dreams might take you to different places, geographically, emotionally, or philosophically. You talk about your goals with excitement, only to be met with blank stares, polite nods, or gentle discouragement. Over time, you stop sharing your plans, keeping them tucked away like fragile treasures. This loneliness grows in the gap between what you hope for and what others can imagine. It's not about them not loving you. It's about them not being able to see what you see. The path forward is to find others who share your dreams, even if they're strangers at first. Surrounding yourself with people who understand your vision doesn't replace the love of those who don't, but it fills a part of you that needs to be seen and believed in. Level 48. The loneliness of living in the past. When a chapter of your life was so bright, so full that nothing afterward has matched it, you can feel trapped in nostalgia. You replay old conversations, revisit familiar places, and keep comparing the present to a time that's long gone. This longing can create a deep sense of isolation, because the past is a place no one else can truly join you in. They can listen to your stories, but they can't feel the same sun on their skin or hear the same laughter echo in their memory. The danger is that you stop fully engaging with the present, waiting for it to measure up. The cure is to honor those memories without letting them define you. Life will never be exactly the same, but new moments, different yet equally valuable, are always possible if you're willing to step forward. Level 49. The loneliness of being misunderstood. Few experiences cut as sharply as being misunderstood, especially by people you love. You explain yourself, but your words seem to warp in the air before they reach the other person. They hear something else entirely, something you never meant. Over time, you stop trying to explain, not because you don't care, but because the effort feels pointless. This loneliness isn't about physical isolation. It's about the emotional gap between your truth and what others believe it to be. When you're constantly misread, you start questioning whether your voice matters at all. The way forward is finding those who truly listen, not just to your words, but to your silences. People who seek to understand, not to respond, can restore a sense of being seen. Until then, it's okay to hold parts of yourself close, protecting them like a fire in the dark, until you find the right place to let them burn bright. Level 50. The loneliness of watching time pass. There's a peculiar ache in realizing how much has changed while you've been standing still. You look around, and friends have moved away, built families, or taken paths you never imagined. The places you knew have been renovated or torn down. People you once spoke to daily are now faces you glimpse only on social media. Time moves for everyone, but when it moves faster for others, you can feel like a ghost wandering through their new lives. This loneliness is the space between who you were with them and who you are now, with no bridge to close the gap. The only antidote is to create new chapters, finding people and places that make you feel like you belong in the present moment, instead of haunting the past. Level 51, the loneliness of not belonging anywhere. Some people drift between circles, groups, and identities, always feeling like they're on the edges. You might be liked, even welcomed, but you're never fully part of the core. You laugh along, share stories, and fit in for a while, but there's always a part of you that feels like you're visiting, not living there. This constant sense of almost can make life feel rootless. The loneliness here isn't about lacking people, it's about lacking a home for your soul. Sometimes belonging comes not from finding the perfect place, but from creating it. Gathering even 2 or 3 people who accept you fully can transform that floating feeling into something solid. Home, in the end, is less about location or group, and more about the rare, precious comfort of being wholly yourself. Level 52, the loneliness of holding secrets. Secrets can be heavy, even when they're yours to keep. They can be joyful, like a dream you're nurturing, or painful, like a truth you fear would change everything if spoken aloud. Either way, holding them alone can be isolating. You walk through the world with an invisible wall between you and everyone else, protecting what only you know. Sometimes the weight comes from fear, fear of judgment, rejection, or loss. Other times, it's simply the burden of not being able to share a piece of yourself. The longer you carry a secret, the more it can start to define you. The way out isn't always telling everyone. Sometimes it's about finding one safe person, someone who will hold your truth without turning it into something else. Sharing even a fragment of your hidden self can feel like taking a deep breath after holding it for far too long. Level 53, the loneliness of the crowd. It's strange how you can feel most alone in a crowded room. The noise surrounds you, conversations swirl, laughter bounces off the walls, yet none of it seems to touch you. You might smile, nod, and even speak when prompted, but your mind drifts somewhere far away. This kind of loneliness doesn't come from a lack of people, it comes from a lack of connection. You could be surrounded by dozens, but if none of them truly see you, it feels like you're in an entirely different world. Over time, this can become exhausting, turning social events into performances rather than shared experiences. The solution isn't always to find more people, it's to find the right people. A single person who looks into your eyes and truly listens can dissolve the emptiness that 100 strangers could never fill. Level 54. The loneliness of change. Life changes, sometimes suddenly, sometimes over years. But change often brings loneliness. You leave a job, and your daily conversations disappear. You move to a new city, and your favorite cafes feel like memories instead of destinations. Even positive change, like chasing a dream, can separate you from people who once shared your path. The loneliness of change is a quiet ache, a longing for the familiarity you left behind. It can be tempting to go back, to return to what you knew, but the truth is, you can't. The antidote is to allow yourself to grieve the old life while slowly building the new one. Loneliness doesn't mean you made the wrong choice, it just means you're in the space between endings and beginnings. Level 55. The loneliness of outgrowing people. Sometimes you don't lose people because of fights or distance. You lose them because you've grown in difference. The things you used to laugh about no longer feel funny. The topics that once connected you now feel shallow. You care about things they don't, and they care about things you've moved past. Outgrowing people is a bittersweet loneliness. There's sadness in knowing you can't go back to the way things were, but also freedom in realizing you're moving towards something that feels more aligned with who you are. Letting go creates space for new connections, ones that match the person you've become. Level 56. The loneliness of being the strong one. When you're always the reliable one, the person others turn to in a crisis, you can become invisible in your own struggles. People assume you're fine because you seem fine. You offer shoulders to cry on, advice to follow, stability to lean on. But when you need the same, the room is empty. This loneliness is masked by competence. You're not seen as someone who could break, so no one thinks to ask if you're breaking. The only way to ease this burden is to let people in to admit you're not always okay. It feels risky, but vulnerability can turn even the strongest walls into bridges. Level 57. The loneliness of losing yourself. Loneliness can come not from losing others, but from losing yourself. You look in the mirror and don't quite recognize the person staring back. Somewhere along the way, you abandoned pieces of yourself to fit in, to survive, to meet expectations. Now, even in your own company, you feel like you're with a stranger. This kind of loneliness is deep. It's not about finding others, it's about finding yourself again. Small acts of self-reconnection can help: revisiting old hobbies, writing your thoughts, spending time in places that feel like home. Rebuilding yourself is slow work, but each step brings you closer to a companionship that never leaves the one you have with yourself. Level 58. The loneliness of secrets. Keeping something hidden can be one of the most isolating experiences in life. It might be a part of your past, a feeling you can't explain, or a truth you're afraid would change how people see you. Every conversation becomes a careful dance, revealing just enough to seem open, but never the full truth. The weight of the secret grows heavier the longer it stays inside. You start to wonder if anyone truly knows you, because the real you is locked away. This loneliness is unique. It doesn't just come from the absence of others, but from the absence of honesty. Sometimes the cure isn't telling everyone your secret, but telling someone. A single trusted ear can lift a weight you've been carrying for years. Level 59. The loneliness of success. We're taught to chase success, but rarely warned about the loneliness it can bring. When you achieve something big, a promotion, a dream project, financial security, you expect joy. Instead, you may find yourself distanced from people who once stood beside you. Some can't relate anymore, others feel threatened or envious. The higher you climb, the fewer people understand the view from where you stand. This isn't a reason to stop climbing, but it's a reminder that success is best shared with those who cheer for you without comparison. Seek out people who celebrate your wins without resentment, and the loneliness fades. Level 60. The loneliness of a different mind. When your thoughts move differently than most, you can feel like you live in a separate world. You notice patterns others overlook, you question things most accept, or you carry emotions with unusual intensity. People might call you too much or too deep. Level 61. The loneliness of longing. Sometimes, loneliness doesn't come from what's missing in the present, it comes from what's missing in the past. You might long for a time when you felt safe, or for a person who understood you completely. The ache isn't always rational, it's rooted in memory. This longing can make the present feel dull, as though you're just passing through until you find something that feels like home again. The truth is, you can't fully return to what once was, but you can recreate pieces of it, whether through rituals, places, or even scents. Small fragments of the past can soften the ache of longing. Level 62. The loneliness of silence. There's a particular kind of loneliness in a silent home. No footsteps, no voices, no background hum of life. Just stillness. For some, this quiet is peace. For others, it's emptiness. When silence becomes your default, it can amplify every thought, every worry, every echo of memory. Level 63. The loneliness of being misunderstood. It's one thing to be alone, but another entirely to be surrounded by people who still don't understand you. You speak, but your words seem to land in the wrong place. You share your feelings, and they get twisted into something you didn't mean. The loneliness of being misunderstood is heavy because it reminds you that connection isn't just about being heard, it's about being heard correctly. This kind of isolation often makes people retreat into themselves, speaking less and less until they stop trying altogether. But understanding doesn't always require someone to fully get your experience. Sometimes it's enough for someone to listen without judgment. The act of being heard with patience can bridge the gap where perfect understanding fails. Level 64. The loneliness of the caregiver. Caring for someone, whether it's a sick parent, a child with special needs, or a struggling partner, can create a form of loneliness few talk about. You give so much of yourself that there's little left for you. Your own needs get set aside, your social life fades, and you start to feel invisible. The loneliness here comes from being the strong one all the time, without anyone seeing how much strength it takes. The truth is, caregivers need care too. Finding even a small space where you can be supported instead of supporting can make a world of difference. Level 65. The loneliness of the crowd. It's entirely possible to be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. Parties, festivals, bustling cities, none of it guarantees connection. In fact, sometimes the contrast between your inner state and the outer noise makes the loneliness sharper. You watch others laugh, talk, connect, and wonder why it feels like you're watching from behind glass. This loneliness isn't about physical proximity, it's about emotional distance. And the cure isn't necessarily more people, it's the right people. One genuine conversation can be worth more than 100 shallow exchanges. Level 66. The loneliness of self-doubt. When you question your own worth, every interaction feels unstable. Compliments feel hollow, relationships feel conditional, and achievements feel undeserved. Self-doubt creates a wall between you and the rest of the world, because you convince yourself that if people truly knew you, they wouldn't stay. This fear of being found out keeps you from opening up, and the loneliness grows in the silence. Learning to trust your own value without needing constant proof from others is one of the hardest but most freeing steps toward connection. Level 67. The loneliness of loss. Grief is one of the deepest forms of loneliness. Even when others grieve alongside you, no one can feel the exact shape of your loss. Whether it's the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the loss of a dream, the emptiness it leaves is uniquely yours. People may comfort you for a time, but eventually life moves on for them, while you still carry the weight. Over time, the loneliness shifts. It may never vanish completely, but it can become softer, transforming from a sharp ache into a quiet memory. Level 68. The loneliness of waiting. There's a peculiar emptiness in waiting for something you can't control. News from a doctor, reply to a message, the outcome of a big decision. Time stretches unnaturally, and your thoughts loop endlessly. The world keeps moving, but you feel frozen, tethered to a future moment that hasn't arrived yet. This kind of loneliness isn't about people, it's about feeling out of sync with the flow of life. Sometimes the best way to break its grip is to bring yourself back into the present, even in small ways. Level 69. The loneliness of a hidden struggle. Many people suffer in silence, battling anxiety, depression, or other invisible challenges. Outwardly, they may look fine, even happy, but inside, it's a different story. This creates a dual life, the one you show the world and the one you live when no one's watching. The gap between the two can be crushing. Breaking that silence, even to one trusted person, can be the first step toward dissolving that loneliness. Level 70. The loneliness of transition. Big life changes, moving to a new city, starting a new job, becoming a parent can trigger a strange, quiet isolation. You're not necessarily unhappy, but you're in a space where everything feels unfamiliar. Old connections fade with distance, and new ones haven't yet formed. This in-between stage can be deeply lonely, but it's also temporary. The key is to see it not as emptiness, but as the foundation for the next chapter of connection. Level 71. The loneliness of the night. For some, night brings peace. For others, it brings a kind of silence that feels like the world has left them behind. When the lights go out and the noise fades, all that's left is you and your thoughts. And in the stillness, those thoughts grow louder. The night has a way of amplifying emotions, making you remember every mistake, every loss, every what if. While daytime distractions can numb loneliness, the night strips those away. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, and the absence of connection feels almost physical. The only way through it is to accept the night as a companion, rather than an enemy. Some people write, some listen to music, some reach for the stars through a window. Whatever your ritual, the night doesn't have to be something that swallows you whole. It can also be where you meet yourself. Level 72. The loneliness of the outsider. Being different can be beautiful, but it can also be isolating. Whether it's your beliefs, background, identity, or even the way your mind works, standing apart from the majority often means standing alone. You might be respected, even admired, but still not fully included. The outsider's loneliness is subtle. It's not always about rejection, but about never truly belonging. Sometimes you find small pockets of acceptance, groups where your differences are celebrated. But until then, you learn to carry yourself as your own anchor, building strength from the very thing that sets you apart. Level 73. The loneliness of a fading friendship. Friendships often end quietly, not with a fight, but with a slow drift. Life pulls you in different directions. Messages get fewer, calls become rare, and before you know it, someone who knew your whole story is now just a name on your phone. The loneliness here is tinged with nostalgia. You miss who they were and who you were when you were with them. Reconnecting isn't always possible, but cherishing the chapter you shared can soften the ache. Not all connections are meant to last forever, but that doesn't make them any less real. Level 74. The loneliness of success. It sounds strange. How can reaching your goals make you feel lonely? But success often changes the landscape of your relationships. People might envy you, misunderstand you, or treat you differently. You may also outgrow the spaces where you once felt comfortable. In chasing your dreams, you sometimes leave people behind, not out of malice but necessity. The loneliness here comes from realizing that not everyone can or wants to follow you where you're going. The best antidote is to seek those who share your new horizon. Level 75. The loneliness of the strong friend. Everyone comes to you for advice, comfort, and a listening ear. You're dependable, wise, and always there. But when you're the strong friend, who do you lean on? People assume you're fine because you're so good at helping others. You keep your struggles quiet, not wanting to burden anyone. The truth is, strength without support becomes a prison. Even the strongest need to be seen, held, and heard. Sometimes you have to remind yourself and others that you deserve the same care you give away so freely. Level 76. The loneliness of unspoken love. Loving someone in silence can be both beautiful and heartbreaking. You notice their laugh, their little habits, the way they look at the world, and you keep it all locked away. Maybe it's because they're with someone else. Maybe you fear rejection. Either way, the love lives only in you, and with it a loneliness that no one else can touch. Sometimes the silence keeps the love pure. Sometimes it just keeps you stuck. The hardest part is deciding when to protect your heart and when to risk it. Level 77. The loneliness of the digital world. Social media can make you feel connected, but it can also make you feel more alone than ever. Scrolling through highlight reels of other people's lives can create a sense of distance from your own reality. You compare, you doubt, you withdraw. Online interaction can't fully replace face-to-face connection, yet it's where much of modern life now exists. The loneliness here isn't just about isolation, it's about saturation. Too much noise, too little meaning. Level 78. The loneliness of a closed heart. Past hurts can make you shut the door on new connections. You tell yourself you're protecting your peace, but in truth, you're also protecting your loneliness. A closed heart feels safe but heavy. Over time, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You expect distance, so you keep people at a distance. Reopening the door doesn't have to be sudden. It can be as small as saying yes to coffee, or letting someone see a little more of you than before. Level 79. The loneliness of the unseen self. You play roles: parent, partner, worker, friend, but somewhere in all of them, the real you gets lost. People see the version you present, not the full truth, and maybe you've hidden so well that even you've forgotten what's underneath. This loneliness is the ache of being invisible in your own life. Rediscovering yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Level 80. The loneliness of moving on before others do. You've healed from something, a breakup, a loss, a change, while others are still stuck in it. Suddenly, you're in different emotional worlds. You feel ready for what's next, but you can't fully share that with people still looking backward. The loneliness here is about mismatched timing. It's not wrong to move forward, it's part of life, but it can mean walking alone for a while. Level 81. The loneliness of new beginnings. Starting over can be exciting, but it's also a place where loneliness thrives. A new city, a new job, a new phase in life, all come with fresh possibilities, yet they strip you of the familiar safety net. You may find yourself surrounded by strangers, navigating unknown routines, missing the comfort of old faces and places. It's a strange paradox. You're building a new life, but in the meantime, you feel like a ghost in your own story. This loneliness softens over time, as the unfamiliar becomes familiar, but in the early days, it's a silent shadow that follows you everywhere. Level 82. The loneliness of the caregiver. Caring for someone, whether it's a sick parent, a child, or a partner, can be fulfilling, but it can also isolate you from the rest of the world. Your time, energy, and emotional bandwidth are consumed by their needs, leaving little room for your own. Friends may drift away, not out of malice, but because they don't understand your reality. The loneliness here isn't just about lack of company, it's about feeling unseen in your sacrifices. Level 83. The loneliness of a hidden struggle. Sometimes the people around you have no idea you're fighting a battle inside. You smile, you perform, you meet expectations, all while carrying a weight no one sees. It could be depression, anxiety, grief, or something else entirely. The loneliness isn't only in the pain, it's in the act of hiding it. Opening up feels risky, but it's the only way to break the isolation. Level 84. The loneliness of a one-sided relationship. You give and give, but the other person rarely meets you halfway. Maybe they're distracted, maybe they don't care, or maybe they just don't have the capacity. You tell yourself it's okay, that you're fine carrying the weight, but over time, the imbalance wears you down. The loneliness here is sharp because you're not alone physically, but emotionally you might as well be. Level 85. The loneliness of the dreamer. You see possibilities others can't. You imagine a different life, a better world, a future filled with meaning. But when you share your visions, people might dismiss them as unrealistic. Dreamers often walk alone, not because they want to, but because they're ahead of their time. The loneliness here isn't hopeless, it's the quiet gap between you and a world that hasn't caught up yet. Level 86. The loneliness of constant change. Some people thrive on change, but constant movement, new jobs, new homes, new social circles can erode your sense of belonging. You collect moments and faces, but roots never have time to grow. The loneliness here is subtle. You have many acquaintances but few deep connections. Sometimes, staying still is the bravest choice. Level 87. The loneliness of self-discovery. When you start to truly understand yourself, you might realize you no longer fit into the life you've built. Old habits, old relationships, and old dreams start to feel foreign. This transformation can be liberating, but also deeply lonely. You're shedding one skin before you've fully grown the next. Level 88. The loneliness of the unforgiven. Mistakes can isolate you, especially when forgiveness never comes. Whether it's from others or yourself, the absence of absolution can make you feel permanently set apart. This loneliness lingers because it's tied to guilt and shame. Healing starts with accepting that some bridges can't be rebuilt, but you can still build new ones. Level 89. The loneliness of being misunderstood. Few things feel as isolating as explaining yourself over and over, only to be met with confusion or judgment. It makes you question whether it's worth trying at all. The loneliness here is about the gap between your inner world and how it's perceived. Finding people who get you, even just one, can dissolve years of this kind of solitude. Level 90. The loneliness of a love that changes. Long-term relationships can evolve into something different, still caring, still supportive, but lacking the intimacy they once had. You're with someone, yet you miss the connection you used to share. The loneliness here is quiet, but constant, like living in a house that's familiar but no longer feels like home. Level 91, the loneliness of a life without passion. When the days start to blend together, when nothing excites you, when you're simply moving through motions, it creates an emptiness that no crowd can fill. You may be surrounded by people, but without passion, every interaction feels muted. This kind of loneliness isn't about isolation, it's about the absence of a spark, the thing that makes life feel worth living. Reigniting that flame takes courage, but it's the antidote to the slow fade. Level 92. The loneliness of losing a home. A home isn't just walls, it's memories, smells, sounds, the way sunlight hits a certain corner. Losing it, whether to disaster, money, or choice, is losing a part of yourself. You may find a new place to live, but the sense of home takes longer to return. Until then, the loneliness is in every unfamiliar sound at night, every missing comfort. Level 93. The loneliness of leadership. Leading others means making decisions they may not understand or agree with. It means carrying responsibility, absorbing blame, often shielding your team from pressures they'll never see. Leadership can be respected, but it's rarely understood from the outside. The loneliness here is the gap between the burden you carry and the perception of those you lead. Level 94. The loneliness of the outsider. Sometimes, no matter how much you try to blend in, you remain the other. Different background, accent, appearance, beliefs. It can all make you feel like you're permanently on the edge of the group. This kind of loneliness isn't always cured by acceptance from others. It often requires deep self-acceptance first. Level 95. The loneliness of a relationship ending. Breakups are a double loss. You lose the person, and you lose the shared future you imagined. Even if the split was necessary, the absence can feel like a haunting. The loneliness here is intensified by the echoes of routines you once shared, now empty. Healing isn't quick, but it's possible. Level 96. The loneliness of fading friendships. Friendships aren't always lost in dramatic fights. They often fade quietly, through distance, busy schedules, or changing priorities. You look up one day and realize someone who was once central to your life is now a stranger. The loneliness here is quiet, but it can be as heavy as grief. Level 97. The loneliness of being a visionary. Seeing possibilities others can't is thrilling, but it can leave you without peers who understand you. You talk out ideas that seem impossible to others, and they look at you with skepticism instead of curiosity. The loneliness isn't in your vision, it's in waiting for others to catch up. Level 98. The loneliness of unshared success. Reaching your goals is fulfilling, but if you have no one to share the moment with, it can feel hollow. The celebration becomes internal, and the loneliness here is the silence that follows your greatest achievements. Level 99. The loneliness of mortality. At some point, you realize deeply, everyone you love, including yourself, will one day be gone. This awareness can create a unique kind of loneliness, as if you're walking through life knowing it's all temporary. The solution isn't denial, it's embracing each moment while it's here. Level 100. The loneliness that teaches. This final level is the understanding that loneliness, while painful, is also a teacher. It strips away illusions, forces you inward, and can lead to deeper self-awareness than comfort ever could. At this level, you stop fearing loneliness, not because you like it, but because you understand it. It becomes less of an enemy, more of a mirror, reflecting the truth of who you are. Level 14. The loneliness of changing faster than your circle. Growth can create distance. You might start therapy, move to a new city, develop new interests, or change beliefs, and suddenly the people who once got you no longer feel aligned. This loneliness is subtle. It's not about conflict, but about drifting tempo. They're walking, you're running, or they're still, and you're climbing. The instinct might be to slow yourself down to keep them close, but that can create resentment and self-betrayal. Instead, honor the truth. Change alters compatibility. To ease the gap, keep ritual contact points. A monthly dinner, an annual trip to preserve the parts of connection that still work. Seek parallel growers, people on their own transformation journeys, even if their path differs. Share your changes as narratives, not ultimatums. Invite curiosity instead of declaring division. And remember, some relationships recalibrate after a pause. Distance can later become reunion if both sides evolve into new overlap. The loneliness of outgrowing people hurts, but it also frees space for those who match your current stride. Growth is rarely symmetrical. What matters is that you keep moving toward environments where your pace feels at home. Level 15. The weight of unshared grief. Grief is inherently lonely, even when surrounded by mourners. Your relationship to the person or thing lost is singular. No one else had exactly your view, your moments, your blend of love and regret. This creates an isolation of perspective. You may feel out of step with others' timelines or expressions of grief. Some rush to move on while you still live in daily ache. Others want to talk constantly when you crave silence. To ease this, find grief-specific spaces, support groups, forums, or even one friend who holds space without trying to fix you. Create a grief language, a playlist, a set of photos, a shared ritual that lets you wordlessly signal when you want to remember. Avoid the trap of grief comparison. Pain isn't ranked, and each loss is total in its own dimension. It's okay if your mourning doesn't match the cultural script. Let others know, gently, what you can and cannot handle. I appreciate your stories about them, but today I just need company without words. Over time, your grief's sharp edges will soften, but the loneliness may linger in certain moments. That's normal. It doesn't mean you've failed to heal. It means you loved deeply and still do. Level 16. Loneliness in a crowd. You can be in a stadium, a festival, a wedding dance floor, and feel utterly alone. This form of loneliness isn't about being unseen. It's about lacking resonance. The energy of the crowd amplifies the dissonance between your inner state and the external scene. In such moments, ground yourself with a personal anchor. Touch an object that matters to you, recall a line from a favorite book, or text a trusted friend. Reframe the crowd as a collection of stories. Every person here has their own joys and struggles, and you are part of that tapestry, even if threads aren't touching now. Practice selective engagement. Seek one genuine micro-interaction, a shared smile, a small exchange at the snack line. These can break the seal of isolation. If crowds often trigger this, explore why. Is it sensory overload, social anxiety, or a mismatch of interests? Then choose gatherings where your core identity has a place, events built around shared values or passions. Remember, loneliness in a crowd isn't proof you don't belong anywhere. It's a signal you haven't found the right crowd for this version of you.